Hello, dear viewers. Welcome to Moksha Media. Namaskar. Moksha Hiramati is with you. The Mughal prince Dara Shikoh had 52 versions of Upanishads on his table. They were in Persian language. Later on, these Upanishads were translated into Latin from Persian language, and afterwards philosophers like Schopenhauer, Duse of Germany, and the scholar Max Muller read them in the language of Latin. Afterwards, they translated them into English language. Now, most of the Upanishads have been available in English language. It shows to what extent these Upanishads are very popular even today. And from 1500 before Common Era to the 1700 of Common Era, we can see so many types of Upanishads. In the 17th century, another Upanishad has come out in the language of Telugu, that is called Muktika Upanishad. This Muktika Upanishad listed 108 Upanishads, and it placed Brihadaranyaka Upanishads in the 11th position of Upanishads. Of course, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad is the oldest Upanishad among all the Upanishads. It is also very popular and prominent Upanishads among all the Upanishads. The Brihadaranyaka Upanishad has consisted 4 words of Sanskrit. They are Brihat, Aranya, and Ka, and Upanishad. Out of these 4 words, one is adjective, 2 are nouns, and another one is preposition. Brihat is an adjective, Aranya is the noun, and Upanishad is the noun. Ka acts as a preposition. In Indian languages, prepositions play a prominent role, but not the verbs. Verb is there, but not that much of important. In Indian languages, we can form a sentence without the verb. But it is very difficult or impossible to form a sentence without a verb in European languages. So anyhow, Brihat means great, big, vast. Aranya means forest, wild forest. Ka means in that place. And Upanishad means a philosophical meditation or a philosophical thoughts composed through or come to conclusion through dialogues with the gurus and disciples. Of course, this Brihadaranyaka Upanishad is composed in the great forest. There, the preceptors and disciples sat together, and the preceptor went on and on saying something to his disciples, and disciples asked questions and cleared their doubts. But it was happened through dialogues. That is, it is recorded in the words of the mouth, and what is recorded in the words has been passed from generation to generation. Of course, later onwards, some script historians say that most of the texts have been formed in the form of a book in the common era of 5th, 6th or 7th century of the common era. Anyhow, let it be to the script historians. But the point is, these Upanishads are passed from one generation to another generation through mouth. And what is the importance of these Upanishads, especially Brihadaranyaka Upanishad? I have already told you that Brihadaranyaka Upanishad is one of the oldest Upanishads. It is also very important Upanishad. And in the olden days, students sat near to the teacher, and then they went on and on, giving so many reasons, finding out solutions for their problems and thoughts. Of course, as they were composed in the forest, they were very near to the forest, they were very near to the nature. They are meditated on nature, on space, and other creatures in the nature in the world. That means this Brihadaranyaka Upanishad is intimately connected with the nature than any other Upanishads, because at that time moved on and on, man came out of the forest in search of life in order to beautify his life. So, as he goes on in search of life and beautifying life, he goes away and away from the nature. So, in later Upanishads, the nature is not found that much of. Brihadaranyaka Upanishads tells us something about Atma and Brahma and creation of this universe. It is believed that Prajapati created this universe. Then automatically a question is raised. Who created Prajapati? Of course, Brahma created that Prajapati. So, that Atma and Brahma are very important, and Man, in order to end, full stop to rebirth, he would like to have moksha. But to get a moksha depends upon karma. Whatever a man does, and is going to do in the future decides his moksha. That is why karma is very important. If you do a good thing, you would get a moksha as early as possible. If you do a bad thing, you do not get a moksha. Moksha means liberation from life. That is, liberation from rebirth. It is a kind of going away from the life to life. That is why he is in Atma. That Atma is the part and parcel of Brahma. Everything can be changed in Brahma, but not Brahma. Brahma doesn't refer to Brahmin here. It doesn't refer to any caste here. But later onwards, as in the case of other things in India, this Brahma is ultimately associated with the caste. But anyhow, that is debatable. But in olden days text, we cannot see this aspect of caste in Upanishads, whatever Upanishads it may be. Here I don't want to get into the conflict and creation of caste and other things in India. Let them, because it takes its own time. If we dwell on it, automatically it gets a different picture. That is what I don't want. Of course, ultimately castes are formed on the basis of the profession. What we require is the harmony in the profession, but not the conflict among the professions. What we see today, the conflict among the professions, but not the harmony in the professions. That harmony is very important. Coordinating profession is very important. Leading a life of happiness is important. But we have given up that idea and we concentrate on other things, especially on the accumulation of the material at the cost of others. That leads to so many struggles and etc. etc. Especially Brihadaranyaka Upanishad influenced so many philosophers, scholars, poets, meditators, students, and etc. etc. I have already given you the example of German philosopher Schopenhauer and Duce, scholar Max Muller. Max Muller is very famous in India. Some people call him, some people consider him. His name is not Max Muller, but it is Moksha Muller. To that extent that Max Muller is associated with the Indian way of life, with the Indian thoughts of life and space and universe. Of course, most of the Upanishads have been translated into English by German scholars, especially Max Muller. They have been also translated into French language, but the French version is not that much of popular. English versions are very popular. Poets like T.S. Eliot is also composed his poems on the basis of these Upanishads, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Especially his poem Wasteland refers to this Upanishad. Some of the popular slokas, some of the popular incidents we see in the history of philosophy are there in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. The conversation of Maitri Gargi and Yajnavalkya appear in this Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Some people say Yajnavalkya composed Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, but no. Upanishads are not composed by any one man. They are the works of collectivity, not individuality. But individuals have contributed something for that connectivity, for that order, for that composition. So there we cannot deny the importance of those individuals. And from this point of view, Yajnavalkya becomes a very important sage who tries his best to shape the slokas in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Later onwards, so many comments have been done. Of course, these Upanishads, especially Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, might have been composed in the 900 before Common Era, that is BC, to the 200 before Common Era, that is BC, 200 BC, before Common Era. Later onwards, so many comments have been done. In the 8th century of Common Era, that is AD, Shankaracharya commented on Brihadaranyaka Upanishads and other Upanishads. In the 13th century of AD, I think, Madhvacharya also commented on these Upanishads. Shankaracharya stood for non-dualism, whereas Madhvacharya stood for dualism. Of course, then these trends have been continued. We have seen the qualified non-dualism of Ramanujacharya and the energetic qualified non-dualism of Renuka in those periods. Especially, we see these developments in the philosophical work Siddhanta Shikamani, composed by Shivayogi Shivacharya. Of course, it is said in Siddhanta Shikamani that Shivayogi Shivacharya composed it in the form of dialogue between Renuka and Agastya sage. He told how energetic, qualified, non-dualistic monism played a prominent role in the life of a man. What he preached to Agastya, Agastya preached it to Shankaracharya. That is what he told. Here there are so many doubts. I don't want to get into those doubts because doubts are doubts. In one way or another way, they carry us, they lead us somewhere. But anyhow, here what we see these developments in Indian philosophical phenomena. But these philosophical phenomena are there in southern India. Shankaracharya, Madhvacharya, Renuka and Ramanujacharya were belonged to South India. Renuka appeared first then Shankaracharya, then Ramanujacharya, then Madhvacharya, and etc. etc. Later onwards, in the 13th, 14th, 15th, and 17th centuries, so many commentaries have been done on these Upanishads. Because in one way or another way, these Upanishads form the knowledge part of Indian psyche and mind. That is why these Upanishads are inseparable in Indians' way of life. Whatever religions Indians may follow, but the influence of these Upanishads can be felt. Whether it is who believed Vedas or who don't believe Vedas, who are for the ancient knowledge, who are for against the ancient knowledge, that is immaterial. Even the influence of them can be seen on Buddhism, because this Upanishad is composed before Buddhism. Especially the sloka, which is very popular even today, is there in this Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Most of them feel that it is from Buddhism. But some people say no, Buddhism has taken it from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Most of you may have heard that sloka. To quote that sloka, to recite that sloka, Asatoma Sadgamaye, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityorma Amrutam Gamaya, Om, peace, peace, peace. It is a very popular sloka. This sloka influenced almost all persons in the field of literature, philosophy in India and in the world also. That means, O Lord, lead us from untruth to truth, from ignorance to darkness, from mortality to immortality. Then it ends with these words, Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. That means peace. Peace is very important. Man cannot live without the peace. So that Shanti becomes part and parcel of this sloka. Everyone recites this sloka even today. Whatever religion it may be, they recite it in one way or another way. They follow it in one way or another way. So, this sloka influenced even T.S. Eliot, the famous English literary figure. Especially here, we have to remember his poem, Wasteland. So, like this Brihadaranyaka Upanishad plays a prominent role among all the Upanishads. Of course, as it is the oldest one, it might have been some limitations, but its revelations regarding the nature cannot be questioned, because it is intimately connected with the nature, with the forest and in the forest. So now as the society is advanced, as the towns, cities and metropolitan cities are developed or advanced, we go to the forest in search of the peace. That is, journeying from forest to town, town to forest, forest to civilized life, civilized to uncivilized life, and of course uncivilized to civilized life. Man goes in search of something. Man goes in search of beautifying his life. Man goes in search of beauty. Of course, that beauty is not a physical consciousness, it is not a physical understanding. It goes beyond that physic. That appreciation of that beauty beyond the physical entity is very important. So we say Satyam Shivam Sundaram. So these popular slokas and popular sayings have been found in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Here I have tried to sum up some of the important points in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Of course, it needs to be understood in a proper sense. It needs to be researched in a proper sense because everything should be questioned. We should not accept without question. If any holy book tells us you should not question, we have to reject that book, whatever book it may be. So, because questioning is very important. Question to understand, not question to disdain, not question to laugh. In order to understand life, in order to make the life beautiful, everything should be questioned. If we get a very satisfactory answer, a contentful answer, then that should be accepted. That is what we see in the history of human development and social advancement. That is what we see in so many texts, either of this religion or that religion, either of Indian origin or out of the other origin. So that is what we have seen in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. I think this much is enough. Of course, I hope you will share and subscribe. See you in the next episode. Namaskar.